All right, welcome back to the show. Good to be with you here. Peel yourself off the mat Monday, and this is Super Bowl week. We're also in the aftermath, the afterglow of essentially the NFL All Star Weekend, where they played the Pro Bowl and revised the format to the point where, you know what, if you're a modern day fan, do you not just accept this as maybe being what their best option is, Libby?
I
It seemed to be entertaining for the people that were involved there at the stadium for sure, and the players. What do you think?
I watched a second of it, but
Okay.
maybe this woman did.
Well, and of course, our concern was for the sick, degenerate bastards out there that might be tuned into this show who bet on the Pro Bowl game. We welcome to the show our ultimate
It's like
NFL insider, Jason Cole. Can you picture a guy getting up, Jason, at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, maybe later on this evening, and saying, "I can't believe I tapped out on the Pro Bowl yesterday. I don't know what I'm going to do. I need help."
someone from Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Yeah, well, now were you there? Because I would think, being an NFL insider type, where people are gathered from the league, like they will be for the Super Bowl this week, that
I was
they would.
not there. I was not at that spectacle. So,
Okay,
no, I didn't get a chance to go to that. I'm not sure I ever will.
I would think there's access to people, though. I mean, there are a lot of stories floating around. That's for sure. I don't know. You don't get an edge in exploring them while you're in one of those settings.
No, not really, because they don't really allow them to be accessed. If that's
Uh-huh.
the word that you would use.
Yeah.
They're kind of protected, especially in Vegas now, because it's not like in Hawaii when you could hide those guys on the far reaches of the island,
Yeah.
the resort, and it was kind of private and kind of fun, and it was a family kind of an opportunity for most of those guys. When you put them in Vegas, it's a spectacle, and so they want to keep those guys under wraps, especially given what happened with Alvin Kamara here ago.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep those guys away from the public, not near the public, and Vegas is not the best place for that generally.
All right, and this, of course, begins Super Bowl week. What are your plans? How do you approach it? I mean, when do you make your entree to the Radio Row atmosphere and the coverage of the Super Bowl game?
Try to avoid that.
As late as possible, huh?
Yeah, as late as possible. Late in the week is better because it's the bigger stars come out on Thursday and Friday, and you get your work to do early in the week. So the Radio Row thing is because it always feels like this swirling vortex of hell where if you go in, you can never get out. It's all of a sudden it's like, hey, we've got your book. You can do 5 minutes with us and do that, and you, all of a sudden your entire day is gone, and you have never left that room, and you realize everybody's talking about things and nothing is actually happening.
Exactly. Nothing's said.
Like this is the other thing about Radio Row that I don't get is like everybody talks about going to Radio Row, and it's like there's nothing really happening here until they bring people in at the end of the week, and then I get it. It's like we got Joe Montana, here's Lynn Swan, here's
it's a little bit of a buzz, when Danny Boy's walking through the room there, and we grab him. Yeah, always feels good.
By the end of the week, I get it. At the end of the week, but to me, it's like it's a slow churn towards death for a guy.
Well, it's always good to figure out who Sugar Shane Mosley likes in the Super Bowl when he took so many shots in the head in that Vargas fight that he's not sure, what teams are playing. Which,
yeah, exactly.
I always enjoyed it. I mean, it does intensify as you get towards, especially Friday. I mean, you have all of the heavyweights seem to come rolling through there. The amazing thing to me was always that, in spite of the Montanas and, Ray Lewis and different people, that have huge NFL images, you would see Tim Tebow with the largest entourage and number of security people. Even though he hadn't really done much in professional football, but somehow had this divine connection to the Lord.
Well, he has a divine connection to people who like to believe that he needs security.
Yes. I mean, who's looking to pop Tim Tebow in the mouth? Nobody. I mean, he's fine.
Right. Yeah. Tim, you could get by with it. You could get by with your publicist. It'd be fine.
Yeah.
But he's always had an entourage. I remember talking to an agent who was recruiting him coming out of college, and there were like 30 people in the room interviewing. And he just looked and he kind of said, "Yeah, this is not really for me. I think there's some other people that you'd rather have."
Yeah.
He was fielding questions from all 30, and like he's like, "When do I get to have a conversation with Tim?" So it's always been like that with Tim. He's always had a ton of people around him who make him feel important, and they themselves are self-important, such as his brothers and his dad and stuff like that. So,
it's like the Clampets show up there at Radio Row. Louie's got something for you here, Jason.
Look, and
more
I
on
do want to
track.
talk about the game, but we've already started to have some off-season moves, head coaching and coordinators. Down here, there was a will they, won't they with Vic Fangio, but by the end of last week, it seemed like that had been sort of settled. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins moving on from Josh Boyer and getting someone that most people are heralding as a slam dunk hire in Vic Fangio to coordinate their defense?
well, I mean, look, Vic Fangio in a 3-4 defense is awesome. I think he'll get a lot out of Bradley Chubb. He has a lot of familiarity with him, but just generally, Vic knows what he's doing, and really, really knowledgeable guy. He's your perfect sort of curmudgeonly defensive coordinator. Who's always kind of miserable, and I appreciate that about him. He's a really good quality coach. Yeah, you have to have guys play hard, and you have to have good players. They seem to have good players. I don't know why they were so bad on the road last year. That's such a weird thing. That causes questions like, what's going on? What's the communication like? What's the preparation like? Was Boyer ready for that? I don't know why things went so haywire, and also immediately after the Chubb trade, they didn't get a lot out of Chubb. If you're going to pay him that kind of money and make that kind of trade for him, you need to get more out of him. So that's those are my two main concerns. But I think Fangio will be prepared for those two things and solve those two problems.
We had been following this Sean Payton thing for a while, and whenever Odyssey he was going to be on there, he spends a year in broadcasting. Now comes back as the coach of the Denver Broncos. We all saw Russell Wilson, who appeared to be a shot fighter, if he ever was a fighter, in his late stages there in Seattle, which maybe they sensed this too. But can he salvage what the Denver Broncos had hoped to be, or is it going to be, one of those deals where you can't shop at Walmart anymore because you're going to have to raise prices to accommodate his $20 million salary demands?
Look, I'm not worried about the money. The Penner Walton family has plenty of cash. Let's not worry about that.
As long as Mayo keeps buying seltzer there, I mean, they're going to be in business.
Right.
Yeah.
You got that. That's an endless loop.
Yeah.
So,
goes out of his way, by the way, to save a buck, which I can respect now.
Yeah, the Walmart's not that close to his house, though. I know
$10 worth of gas to save a buck on some seltzer, and he buys like 5 cases.
What a schmuck. Anyways, the Broncos. It's really fascinating because he really didn't want to take this job.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, interviewed for every job. I mean, even the Giants, talked to him. I think.
Yeah,
they love Dayball. Yeah,
right. Like he didn't really love the idea of coaching Russell Wilson, but they did pay him, close to $20 million a year. So there's a point at which you just go, "Yeah, I got to do this."
Yep.
I'm going to take this money, like $100 million over 5 years. And the real question here is Russell Wilson going to buy into the idea? And it's both a physical buy-in and a mental buy-in to having to move around the same way that he did when he was in Seattle, right? It wasn't an easy thing for him last year to do the bootlegs and the rollouts and things like that he needs to do to mix in so that he's not always a sitting target. When you can draw an X in the ground and know where Russell Wilson is going to be, 90% of the time, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Especially for a short quarterback, because you can basically run your fronts at him, crush the pocket from in front, and it forces him to not be able to see a lot of the pass patterns. So a lot of the reason why they would move him around in Seattle is, so that he could see what he was looking for. You saw the same thing in San Francisco this year when they had to go to Brock Purdy. They had to get him outside the pocket because Purdy's only 5'11", 6 feet tall, right? That's just how the world works with shorter quarterbacks, unless you have great guards and centers, which is what New Orleans had under Sean Payton when they had Drew Brees. And then also Drew would play on his tippy toes, if you guys remember that one. He was always up on the balls of his feet. Russell has to get back to that, and part of it is he's going to have to lose some weight. Not that he's a fat guy. I'm not trying to tell you that. I'm just saying he has to get quicker and more nimble again now that he's in his 30s. And the other thing is he has to get away from the idea that he is a pocket quarterback, because that is what he believes. He believes he wants to be that pocket guy like Brees was. And so he has to give in to Sean Payton saying, no, you're not really like Drew, even though you're a shorter quarterback. You're a guy who needs to be out in space a little bit more, and you have to do these things. And if Russell does that, then this has a chance to work. If Russell resists that, we'll see. The one good thing is Russell called Sean Payton along the way and basically said, I want you as my coach. When he has to make that phone call, that gives Payton the opportunity to say, okay, if you want me to coach you, you have to do this, this, and this. You have to buy into what I say.
Right.
Which I'm sure that Russell Wilson did. There's a difference between saying it in a casual conversation and actually doing it in practice and in games, obviously.
Does he wear number 12 for the New York Jets? Aaron Rodgers.
They're not talking Ravens.
I think Joe Willie said it's okay with him. They can just take that thing right off the wall there, the Wall of Fame, and put it on his back.
Here is that's a fantastic question between Joe Willie, conversation between Joe Willie and Aaron Rodgers, because you probably can't find two guys who are more dissimilar.
Except for Babes. I mean, a litany of Babes with both legendary stuff.
They got that, but
yeah,
some of the although Joe's gotten into some he believes in magnets and stuff like that will heal your body or something like that.
No, he's gone. He's a shot fighter, man. The knees are shot, and I think the rest of it is
close
behind.
The amusing thing to me in all of this is Aaron Rodgers and the New York media.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Aaron Rodgers already thinks he's got it bad with the media in Green Bay.
Green Bay. Yeah, they got one guy writes a fishing column, covers the Packers.
And criticizes his form on the fly fishing, right? Like, and he's like, "How dare you say this about me?" He goes on McAfee's show every other week. And look, I love Aaron Rodgers, player, and he's actually a good player. Do one-on-one, but God, he's just got such thin skin about stuff, and a lot of it's his own doing, and that just doesn't play in New York.
Oh my God!
Like it just
they'll bury this guy. It was like Neil Rogers on Howard David back in the day when Howard David thought he would challenge the great one, the king of all put downs and cuts.
Right. It just doesn't work.
He ended up taking his hairpiece off and throwing it at Neil, I think, at one point.
I'm a coward.
Can't be thin-skinned. I mean, they just can't. I can't
Yeah,
imagine. You're absolutely right about this in New York.
yeah, right. And he has really, really, really thin skin,
Wow, dead meat.
and I just don't think. God, it'd be such a bad marriage. He's going to go. If he goes anywhere, it really should have been to a West Coast team. He should have forced his way to Denver a year ago and gotten out of this for his own mental health. But he got caught up in this. I have to beat the Pack. If the backers are trying to replace me and do to me what was done to Brett Favre, then I have to show them who's king. And then it became down to this, gigantic contract, which gave him control over his whole fate. And while I appreciate that, it wasn't thinking about, hey, how am I going to win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of lost that point. Yeah, that's for sure. And then they started to make a little run and then got crushed that last game by the Detroit Lions, where our man Dan Campbell came through.
Forget the one game. Forget the last game. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the last decade. You were Super Bowl, and you were
Yeah.
and you were right there, and to be on the precipice of being one of the true all-time greats, because winning does count. That I mean, like the physical act of throwing and the stats that you generated put you in the conversation of the top 5 or top 10 guys, right?
Yeah.
But what really keeps you in the forefront of that group is, did you win 2 or 3 titles?
Yeah.
And did you make the most of your career? He's got 1 title, in which a Super Bowl, which was a absolutely spectacular performance. I mean, he threw 3 or 4 balls in that game where it was as brilliant as it could possibly be. But he hasn't been back to the stage, and he was angry about not getting back to the stage. He got ticked about it. That's why he got ticked at McCarthy. And then all of a sudden, it morphed from being ticked about winning, not getting back to the Super Bowl, to I'm ticked at my own team and I want control of my fate. And I don't know why it turned that way, but that's what happened. And now he's trying to decide, where does he go next. And the Jets, oof, that's a bad marriage. That's like
well, it hasn't happened yet, but that's a speculation.
Well, I know it's a speculation, but the thought about it makes me shiver. It'll be like Ed Whitson playing for the Yankees. It really will.
If you can, just a quick thought here. We got about 30 seconds, and then we have a guy coming on to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. But quick thought on the Super Bowl matchup.
Well, I think it trends toward Philly can win this game by double digits. They're powerful enough. Their running game is tough enough. But, if you watch the 49ers game really carefully, 49ers did a really good job of holding their pass rush lanes and not allowing Jalen Hurts to just be able to take off and run early in that game. And if Kansas City can take that roadmap and copy it, and if Jalen Hurts' arm is kind of as sore as it looked and bad as it looked in that game, then Kansas City has a pretty good shot in this game to win it. But I would also say that their defense has to be very careful, because if they're not very careful, yes, Philadelphia will pound you for 200 yards running the ball. They're more than happy to do that. And a lot of that revolves around, if you let Jalen Hurts out too much, you have to be very disciplined in your approach to make Jalen Hurts a passer purely, especially now that his arm is banged up. And if it continues to be as banged up as it looked in that game against the 49ers. So, he hasn't thrown the ball with a great authority since he came back. He's been okay, but not what he was in the first 13 games of the season.
Excellent stuff, as always. Mahomes, of course, pulling a Willis Reed in the conference championship game. He did develop the verbal can't walk as the game progressed, but most people, it seems to be a little conversation. It's not like Dwight Freeney's ankle, with people zeroing in on that exclusively leading up to the Super Bowl. So, we're all hoping that the teams are at relative full strength and that we get the kind of competitive game, and it looks like the odds makers think it's going to be. Jason, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Really
All
appreciate it.
right.
Glad you weren't involved in a Pro Bowl,
Awesome.
and we'll talk to you again after the Super Bowl and get your thought.
Never again.
Never again.
Okay.
Brian Flores resurfaces too. I mean, by the next time we talk, maybe as a coach of the Cardinals. All right. Thanks, Jason. Always a pleasure, my friend. Jason Cole, ladies and gentlemen.